Tinubu is either very, very weak or very, very wicked as president of Nigeria. Either weak or wicked or both. Why do I say this? Since 2020 to 2025, Nigeria produced 250 billion US dollars worth of oil. $250 billion worth of crude oil and natural gas. Do you know how much of that $250 billion entered the Federation account to be spent by the 3 tiers of government? 25 billion US dollars. Nigerians, where did the remaining money go? Cost of production of the crude oil is either catered for in joint venture cash calls or production sharing contract cost oil. And those amount to not more than 40%. If you take 40% of $250 billion, about 100 billion US dollars. 100 billion US dollars. Let's put that as cost, even though that will be extremely high compared to the cost of production of crude oil in Saudi Arabia, 4 times higher. But let's leave it and say, okay, the figures they gave, no matter how corrupt they actually are, we accept it. That will be $100 billion. So out of the $250 billion, take away the cost oil, then they'll tell you we have $150 billion left. Where did that $150 billion go? That only about $25 billion entered the Federation account. For those of you who don't know, or who may have forgotten, when NNPC sells the crude oil, the money they get goes into the NNPC. It is only when NNPC now decides to send that money into the Federation account that Nigeria can have access to the money to spend. From 2020 to 2025, in many of the years, NNPC simply refused to remit any money into the Federation account. They simply refused. That's why some people call them a parallel government. They simply refused. So, of all the crude oil that was produced, extracted from the ground for that year, Nigeria as a country benefited zero. All the monies disappeared within the NNPC. Now, how does this connect to Tinubu being either weak or wicked? A president who has the interest of the people at heart will come, make himself the Minister of Petroleum like Tinubu did, but he will now look at the whole books and decide to punish those corrupt elements within the NNPC that took Nigeria's oil, sold it, got the money, and pocketed it and refused to give any money to Nigeria. No money to the Federation account to spend. That is what a president who is not weak or wicked would have done. Is that what Tinubu did? The answer is no. The thing is, making himself the Minister of Petroleum in the first place is already a problem, because it means that the Senate cannot summon him to come and answer questions pertaining to Nigeria's oil and gas. The Senate cannot sack him like they have the powers to do, even though they rarely use it, by the Constitution of Nigeria. That's what it means. And it simply means that now that Tinubu has found a way to collapse the 2 arms of government together, nothing can happen to him. And then all the things that go on in the ministry, the NNPC, in the Ministry of Petroleum, totally, all those things will go unchecked. Is that not what is happening now? Now, the fact that he made himself the Minister of Petroleum was a problem. Now, since he got away with it, if he was not weak or wicked, he would have been able to look at the corruption in the NNPC and ask one simple question. Why did Nigeria make 250 billion US dollars and none of it entered the Federation account for those years except $25 billion? That's the question he would have asked. And if he had asked that question, he would have seen that there was no need to increase the pump price of petrol in the name of removing fuel subsidy. There would have been no need. If he had done that, if he was not weak or wicked, he would have seen that the direct sale, direct purchase arrangement of the NNPC under Buhari simply guaranteed that NNPC was not paying 1 naira on fuel subsidy. And this is not just me saying it. The group chief financial officer of the NNPC came out to say it, that they don't pay subsidy. They don't. The oil marketers, the major oil marketers, came out on public during the Senate probe, during TV interviews. They came out to say, we were not paying oil subsidy. And then somebody still comes and says subsidy was too expensive for us to pay. A Minister of Petroleum, a president who had the interest of the people at heart, who was not weak, too weak that he could not act, he was afraid of some forces, or too wicked that he does not care that the policies, the corruption in the NNPC, in Nigeria's oil and gas, it is punishing Nigerians. He doesn't care. He would have looked into that corruption, take out the corruption so that Nigerians can benefit from the natural resources God has given them. Is this what Tinubu did? The answer is no. The corruption in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, in the NNPC, in the NUPRC, in the NMDPRA, those agencies that the Petroleum Industry Act, the PIA, created, the corruption in there, if only Nigerians knew the size of that corruption, they will understand why they have no jobs. They will understand why no quality health care. They will understand why no roads. They will understand why there is insecurity in this country. Because either Tinubu is weak or wicked or both, to simply not care, to simply not confront the corruption that is in Nigeria's oil and gas sector.